Swathi Dayanand from BNM Institute, Bengaluru. Recipient of 7 gold medals. Jain University Gold Medal, late Sanjay Sripati Coimbatore Memorial Gold Medal, Jyoti Gold Medal, R.N. Shetty Gold Medal, Dr. N.R. Shetty Gold Medal, SJC Silver Jubilee 1988 Gold Medal, VTU Gold Medal for first rank holder, highest marks and having secured highest aggregate marks in last 4 semesters with first attempt in BE Electronics and Communication Engineering.
To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with the unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try where your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far. We are with the Swathi Dayanand, where she is the first rank holder for ECE department in Visvesvaraya Technological University, and with 7 gold medals, right? So here are a lot of questions from me and from the students, where I want Swathi Dayanand to answer so that we all get inspirations from her answers. Swathi, please take us through your journey of your life.
Yes, ma'am. So ever since I was a kid, it's not that I had been very studious or anything like that, ma'am. Never that I was very inclined towards studies or anything like that. All I used to think and all I that focused on was understanding what was being taught, ma'am. Getting marks in the exams, all that was secondary, ma'am. The only thing that mattered for me was to be able to understand what was being taught in class, to be able to remember that further. Rather than understanding, to be able to remember it and just try to connect the dots and see how the concept is helpful to us. So even in school, I studied in BNM public school itself. I studied in the ICSE syllabus. Back then it was good, ma'am, because we had an introduction to many of the subjects. In high school we learned about PC, MB and all that. So right from then we had a basic touch and go kind of thing with all those subjects. I found it interesting, ma'am, but then when I was in high school, I didn't have anything as to say like a personal favorite subject or something. We had a subject about coding and I liked coding from then, back then. But when I came to PU, I noticed that there was a drastic change in the way the syllabus is framed and all that, because in 10th we only have a limited amount of syllabus. It is actually small and concise, but when it comes to PU, it was not like that. It was very vast. We used to have many chapters, many concepts to learn and all that. So that is when I actually started putting in a little more effort, because I understood that not understanding the concept is not enough merely. We have to put in more efforts and try to remember that, maybe practice what we learn. That is important, is what I understood. If we just read anything once, it's not enough. It's also important to practice what we are learning. So that I understood when I finished my PU. And when I joined BNM, it was completely different. I mean, first time I didn't have any idea of how it was going to be, how engineering was going to be, also no idea. Everything was new to me. I just thought I'll just see how it goes. I'll try to put in my efforts and see how it goes. So initially, from the very first semester itself, it was very nice being a part of this one, because all the teachers were so friendly, so good. They made the subjects enjoyable. It was not like we had to sit in the class and listen to a lecture and then go back and think this was I couldn't understand this, I couldn't understand that. It was never like that, ma'am. The classroom interaction was something that was very nice, ma'am. So I never felt that I was listening to a lecture or something. It was more like being a part of an interaction. All through these 4 years, it's been the same, and there's never been a single subject or a single semester where I felt that this was not something satisfactory. Never, ma'am, never like that.
Okay, great.
It was
good to know that. Oh, what are your ideologies?
Ideologies as in
what do you believe? These are the words which I have to remember, or it has changed my life. What are those kind of statements or words which you feel you will have to follow in life, or you have followed in life?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I think it's important for everyone to dream big. Like each one may have different dreams. Each person may have a different set of goals that he or she has set for herself. But I feel it's important to dream big, ma'am. He or she should mainly believe that she's capable of achieving that. Only when we believe in ourselves, we'll be able to put in our efforts and just tell ourselves that no, I'm capable of this. If we always keep telling ourselves that no, this is something unreachable, I can't do this is not going to happen, then that kind of forms a sort of a pessimistic thoughts in our mind that keeps recurring, ma'am. If we keep thinking that this is not possible, I can't do this, instead I think it's best that we think optimistically, ma'am. We should at least try to tell ourselves that I'll give my best and see what happens later. I believe in the saying let your dreams be your wings, ma'am. I think that's very meaningful. If we dream high, and we should actually try to dream big, ma'am. That's what I feel.
That's really true. That I totally agree. And that is something which defines you from the others who don't. If you don't even see something, how do you actually
Yes,
achieve
ma'am.
it, right? So
Yes, ma'am. We
you
need to
have to
believe in
see big and
ourselves, ma'am.
achieve it.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly, right. Swati, what is your goal? I mean, was it your goal to achieve gold medal for your graduations? Did you
No,
have it
ma'am. To
as a
be
goal?
very frank, no, ma'am. To be very frank, when I joined engineering, I just wanted to learn as much as possible. I just thought this would be a nice way to learn whatever possible. And this domain, electronics and communication, I thought it will be very helpful because it's not only restricted to just plain electronics or anything like that. It was actually vast. The scope for learning was also more in this domain. So, ma'am, what I wanted to basically do was try to learn whatever the different concepts I can from the different subjects, and then try to remember them and try to apply them to maybe do some projects or something like that. Just try to make the most of what I was learning is what I always looked at, ma'am. When it came to studies and all that, ma'am, for the internals we used to put in some efforts, as in whatever was being taught in class on a day-to-day basis, I used to take some time off when I reached home to just revisit that concept and see if I was able to exactly recollect whatever the teacher had told in the class. That's the one small thing that I tried to do, and it helped me, ma'am. Because if we don't revisit the concept on the same day, or if we just leave it for a long time and then try to go back to it during the time of the exam, we don't remember most of the points that were being said in class. And it's not that we can note down every single word that's being said in class. So sometimes when we go back to the same concept on the same day, it helps us to retain the thing in our memory for a longer time, ma'am. That's one small thing that I used to follow, and that used to actually help, ma'am. Even during the internals and the main exam, suppose we won't get a particular question during the internals, but when it appeared during the main exam or something, I was able to actually reconnect and think, oh, this is how it was explained in class, so this is the concept, it is related to that. That was actually helpful, ma'am.
So actually, you actually answered the next question of mine. Did you have any habits or routines which you followed? So one of the habit you had was
Yes, ma'am, this was
you
one
used
of
to
the
go back
habits.
and look into all the notes which happened on that day, right? Other than
Yes,
this,
ma'am.
do you
Yes,
have
ma'am.
any other habits which you follow in a routine?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, usually on the weekdays, since we used to have classes on consecutive days, when I went home, I used to have time to finish some basic homework or some records and all that. And I used to just go through whatever the running notes I had made. And I used to try to recollect what was said corresponding to this by in the class. I used to try to recollect that, ma'am. But in the weekends, I used to try and look into the textbook for the same concept and try to solve any kind of questions or something if possible, ma'am. As in for maths and some practical analytical subjects, I used to try and solve some numericals or something like that, ma'am. Or anything that was solved in class, I used to try and solve it again, ma'am, so that I could recollect and remember it better, so
Uh,
that I don't lose
which
touch of the
material did you
concept.
use to solve the questions? I mean, did you have any kind of place where you used to go to solve questions, or you
Yes,
used
ma'am.
your textbooks?
The textbooks, ma'am, which I used to borrow from the library most of the time, ma'am. The prescribed ones, ma'am.
Okay, the prescribed textbooks. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, and the same routine you used to follow all through the 4 years. That means you for all the 4 years you revisited every day. You used to be going back and still checking up. Was it
Yes,
being
ma'am.
done all the 4 years?
Yes, ma'am. It started somewhere in around first semester, ma'am. Probably 3 months down the line in first semester. That's when I started doing this, ma'am. Because I realized it's not just enough if we make running notes, keep the book inside our bag, and next go and sit in the class the next day. Because that some sort of connect will be missing, ma'am. If we don't go through what we have written for ourselves, the next day, even though the teachers continue, we don't get that complete connect of what was done yesterday. At least a small point here or there, it gets left behind. So that's when I started doing that, ma'am. I initially started doing that for chemistry and maths and all that, ma'am, because after we finished PU, before we could join engineering, I think there was a 5 to 6 month gap or something like that, ma'am. So we had actually forgotten some of the nuances of chemistry and all that, organic chemistry. So that is when I started actually, I felt maybe if I go back to the same topic on the same day and try to read what is done, then maybe the next day I'll be able to understand it better. I felt that was actually helpful, ma'am. So I stuck to the same habit for the coming 4 years. Yes, ma'am.
Good. So do you follow any kind of strategy or techniques for learning, memorizing, understanding, or retaining concepts?
Yes, ma'am. I've actually heard many people say about different strategies, but what worked for me is writing it, ma'am. The more we write in practice, I feel that has been the most useful thing for me, ma'am. So anything, if I wanted to remember or if I wanted to uh, mark it as important or something, I used to just write it down, ma'am. The running notes was different, but whenever I was studying for any subject or anything, I would sit down with a book. Whatever I felt was important and whatever I felt needed more of my attention, I used to try to write it twice or thrice and something like that, ma'am. And one thing that I felt which was very important is that even when we have some theoretical subjects or something like that, ma'am, people may feel that this is a dry subject, this is very boring to look at, I can't memorize this, I can't remember this. One thing which helps is to go through it again and again, at least 2 to 3 times, and then once we do that, we can actually try to write it in the form of points in our own words, ma'am. That actually makes it very helpful for us to remember, rather than simply reiterating or just omitting what is given in the form of a paragraph or in the form of a diagram or something in the textbook. If we are able to articulate it in our own words in the form of simpler points, it stays with us for a longer time, ma'am. Even when we are given that same question, we'll be confident that no, I have understood this and I can write this in my own words.
So
That was
maybe
one thing which helped.
reading and writing it in your own
Yes, ma'am. Writing.
was your main strategy.
Yes, ma'am. That I follow that. Yes, ma'am. That's the only thing that worked for me.
Okay. The retaining concepts, I think, because you, how did you retain things? Like, as in, you maintained book and you revisited whenever you wanted to.
Yes, ma'am. For that, I had my classwork, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Whatever the teachers used to be explaining, I used to write down what was being said in my own words as a form of running notes. I used to revisit that whenever I had any doubts. And when it came to preparing for the internals and main exams, I used to go back to the textbook as well, try to go through the concepts again. And sometimes, if there was something else that I could add upon to what was there in my running notes, I used to try and consolidate both of them into sort of an answer or a document, and I used to revisit that now. For every exam or internals, I felt that was best, ma'am. We also had the college notes, but I felt textbook along with the college notes was more helpful, ma'am.
Right. And how did you find the foreign author books? How did you find it, reading and making it into a concise full notes? Did you follow
Yes,
any
ma'am.
kind of methods in that, or was it difficult? How did you do it?
Yes, ma'am. So initially, the first thing that I used to refer was the college notes itself, ma'am, what was given by our teachers, because that used to be a little more easier and more readable, ma'am, because they used to take only the important points and they used to frame the answers in a more friendly, student-friendly way. Whereas when we went to the foreign author textbooks directly, it was a bit difficult to navigate through it, find out what concept actually comes where, how much we have to answer if they give a particular question, because it is more like it's like actually going to a white paper or something like that, ma'am. They put in so much information. They have a very nice idea about it, but it's a little difficult for students to get accustomed to it. So I used to first go through the college notes, ma'am. That would be the first thing to do. And then when I used to go to the college foreign author textbook, I used to just try to read through what they have given, ma'am. It used to be a little difficult to navigate, but I used to concentrate on any sort of diagrams or flow charts that they used to give, and then base my answer around that, ma'am. So I didn't completely rely on those textbook. I used to go to the questions given at the end or sort of review points or something like that. That was helpful, ma'am. But for subjects like maths and all that, we had to go through it completely, thoroughly, ma'am. We had local authors for that.
Right. Okay. So do you follow any pattern or method in answering questions in your exam? Like, you have your own style? Do you have something like that?
Ma'am, initially, since we were having the CBCS scheme, as in for each module, we had to attempt all the 5 modules, ma'am. For our seniors, it was like there used to be 10 questions in the question paper, open choice. They could answer any 5. They could answer 2 questions from one module itself and entirely leave out 2 modules in the end. But for us, since we had to answer 1 question at least from each module, I used to sometimes see if both the questions from one module were easy, I used to try and pick the one which would be explained. I used to try and choose a question where I could use diagrams, ma'am, because I felt that rather than writing a completely theoretical or completely answer without any diagrams, a question which comes along with diagrams is easier to explain also, ma'am. I used to feel once we have a diagram in front of us or once we have a small illustration, it becomes easier for us to elaborate on that while we are framing the answer, ma'am. It becomes easy. We actually remember points as we write the diagram, and we'll be able to write that, express it better, is what I used to see, ma'am. But sometimes it used to be inevitable. Both the questions used to be completely theoretical. In that case, I used to go for any one question, ma'am. But
Oh,
numericals is something that I would usually try to attempt, ma'am, because I used to practice numericals more. I found that interesting, ma'am. In any subject, numericals was very interesting. In subjects like control systems also, it was very interesting, ma'am. So there, I won't think much about which question to pick, ma'am. Any numerical would be
the
fine.
techniques I meant, like, did you mention
Yes,
points
ma'am.
or did you underline something? Did you beautify the exam paper? Were you doing
Yes,
that
ma'am.
as well?
While writing the answer, ma'am, I used to sometimes it used to depend, ma'am. Sometimes I used to just go on writing in a paragraph, because as and when I used to remember the points, whatever I could remember, I used to keep on writing. But only sometimes, specifically if the question was such that describe the process or something, what are the different kinds of processes involved in so something, then I used to stick to the points, ma'am. If it the way it was given in the notes, sometimes we had to they used to give the marks such that 4 points, 4 marks, like that. So only then I used to stick to points, ma'am. Otherwise, I used to make short paragraphs or something like that, ma'am. But when it came to underlining the keywords, only if I had some time left after I finished the paper, I used to try and go through the answers again. And if I found that some word was really important or really crucial, then I would just try to underline it, ma'am.
Okay, that actually answered my the other question also. Like, do you complete your paper all the time before the time, and do you go through all your answers once you submit, before you submit it to the teachers, like the evaluators?
Yes, ma'am. For maths, it used to go pretty quick, ma'am. I used to even try to attempt extra questions. I think for maths, twice in 2 semesters, leaving out one question, I had answered 9 questions or something like that, ma'am. I used to have a lot of time left when we were doing math. So at that time, I used to have around 15 minutes left towards the end. I would go back and check all the questions if they've been written correctly, if the answer is correct. I used to just check the calculations again. And I used to check if I've given all the question numbers properly and all that, ma'am.
Okay, but for the
Yes, ma'am. Even for
theory
the other
question,
subjects. Yes, ma'am.
you would revisit only when, I mean, not every time did you revisit the questions, right? Or did
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have?
Luckily, I used to have around 10 minutes left, ma'am, for every subject for in all these 4 years. So in that 10 minutes, I used to just go back to the question paper and see if I've answered all the questions in that particular sub question. Sometimes we used to have question 1, A, B, A, B, C. I used to just check if I've given the question numbers properly and if I've answered each of them correctly. I used to just check if I've not skipped out on anything or any diagram, anything like that, ma'am. Sometimes what I used to do is, ma'am, if I had to draw a big diagram or something, I used to get a little tense thinking if I'll have time left for the other questions. So I would have left a little space for that. So I would just go back in within the time that I have left, like 20-25 minutes or something. I used to first try and complete whatever I had left behind, whatever space I had left behind. And then I used to just go through all the answers and see once, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So, I mean, what did you do if you didn't know any questions, answer for any questions? Was there a, first of all, was there a chance that you did
Yes,
had
ma'am.
answers for any questions?
Yes, ma'am. It was in the subject in third semester, electronics and no, ma'am. Electronic instrumentation. We had one subjects, ma'am. ECI or something, I think so, ma'am. That subject. So for that, we actually didn't get any notes as such. I mean, we had the college notes, ma'am, but basically it was like complete. It was like a same reiteration of whatever the textbook had to offer. And we had a small, not a foreign author, local author textbook, but that was like actually going through a data sheet, ma'am. It was there was so much information given in that textbook, we didn't actually know where to limit ourselves or where to limit that answer. When we went went through the model question papers and the previous board papers, the questions were actually pretty simple and straightforward. But the textbook was such that it was actually divulging a lot of information. So we didn't know where to limit ourselves. And even when it came to the internals also, we were... we just used to write whatever we could understand, ma'am. We took the help of diagrams and we used to try to explain. We used to draw the graphs and all that wherever suitable, the waveform of any particular electronic instrument. We used to try and draw the diagram. And then when it came to the explanation, we used to restrict ourselves to some points because it was not something that we could so easily remember and write, ma'am. We had a lot of devices and remembering each of its properties and each of its working was a little difficult. So in the main exam as well, ma'am, we got some numericals that was easy to attempt. But in one of the questions, I remember they had asked that they had asked about some settings on that device or something, ma'am, how the particular setting is done for that device. And that was not something that we had concentrated more on. More what we had concentrated was the working of it or some diagrams and the numericals. We concentrated that way because there were a lot of devices and each module was itself vast, ma'am. So one of those questions they had asked about a setting or something. I actually started that question, but then halfway I realized I couldn't complete it because I had not studied the entire thing. I was not able to recollect the entire thing. So that time I just left that question and attempted another one, ma'am.
Okay,
It
so
used to happen, ma'am. Sometimes we used to start a question thinking, we used to have that confidence when we start that question saying, okay, I'll be able to do this. But sometimes halfway through the question, we used to realize, no, this is not how the answer was supposed to be. So it's
you just
happened,
leave
ma'am.
it blank. You don't fill it with any other stuffs which
No,
you
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I
can
used to
make it
no,
up.
ma'am. I used to stop that question and then proceed to the next one, ma'am. Fast.
Okay, great. Okay. So what are your hobbies and what is your passion?
Ma'am, I love reading. I love reading books. So ever since I was in probably sixth or seventh, I like literature a lot, ma'am. When we started literature in our school and all that, when we started having Merchant of Venice and all that, that was when I started loving literature, even grammar, ma'am, for that matter. I was always inclined towards literature and grammar. So after having that, I initially we used to have our textbooks and all that. That was very fascinating, going through the chapters, lessons, and all that. But then slowly I felt I should only read more books on my own. That will be nice. Maybe I'll improve my vocabulary also. So ever since then, I started reading. And even now I have that hobby of reading books, ma'am. So whenever I want to feel relaxed or I need a break, I try to pick up a book and read, ma'am. Doesn't matter whatever genre it is. I love comic books, ma'am, even now.
Oh, that's great. Okay, great. What is your passion then?
Uh, mm, as in, ma'am, passion, as in, I just try and want to be good at whatever I do, ma'am. That's it. I don't have a thing that is fixed, like I want to do this. This is my passion. Nothing like that, ma'am. Whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm involved in, I just want to be able to give the best in that, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, what are your best qualities? I think you just told one of them. You just want to give best in whatever you do, right? So
Yes,
what are the
ma'am.
other kinds of qualities which you have? You think are best for you?
Yes, ma'am. I think in our school, one thing that all of us inculcated was discipline. I think so, ma'am. Being disciplined, at least being timely and disciplined. That was one thing that school taught all of us. But then, apart from that, also, ma'am, being determined and being optimistic. I think so, ma'am. That came
I can
eventually in the
add on
long run.
also, you are so polite and humble, down to earth. I can still go on, but then, yeah, you do have certain good qualities, and I appreciate that. What are your bad qualities then? And do you have bad qualities, and how do you improve? How are you trying to improve?
Yes, ma'am, a lot. I don't know, ma'am, why this is stuck to me, but self-criticism, ma'am. Anything, I don't know why. I can't seem to get out of that, ma'am. How much ever I try, one or the other thing, I keep feeling something or the other. Whatever I do, I keep finding flaws in whatever I do. I don't know, ma'am. That has just stuck with me. Nothing never goes away.
I
And
think you're
also
a
sometimes,
perfectionist. So you want everything to be perfect. That's why you criticize yourself, because
yes, ma'am.
something
Most of the
small
time,
things
ma'am, I
go
end up
wrong. Also, you end up criticizing you.
Yes, ma'am. I do something and then eventually I think, no, this should have been done that way. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. All the time, ma'am. It keeps hovering. Keep feeling, no, I should have done something like this, something like that. Yes, ma'am. Most of the time.
Okay. I mean,
I tend to overthink also, ma'am, in the same way. It starts with this. I first start finding flaws, self-criticism, and then it eventually I start overthinking, ma'am. I feel, no, maybe I should have done this. Maybe this is going to happen. Maybe that will happen.
Oh, okay. I mean, are you trying to overcome it?
I have, ma'am, but sometimes it's difficult, ma'am.
I understand. That's okay.
Yes, ma'am, maybe.
Okay. Tell us some challenging situations you faced and how did you overcome it? Like any kind of a story or in your life, what are the challenging situations you have faced and how did you overcome?
Mm, Ma'am, as in, I think when I was in school itself, ma'am, because in 10th, we had this actually in ICSE 10th, they'll give a choice, ma'am. One subject will have less number of credits compared to the other subjects. And actually, it's a voluntary choice that they give to the students, saying you can pick any subject which you want in that category. But our school had chosen computer applications as a subject. So initially, we had no idea about the computer application subject. So initially, when we got introduced to it in 10th, it directly started with a programming language called Blue Java. So when that started for us, like everything was new to us, ma'am. Because earlier when we were in middle school and all that, computer lab just meant learning about Word, Excel. We used to go to the lab, do all that Word, Excel. That was what it was restricted to, ma'am. But suddenly in 10th, when this subject came in, we didn't know what a programming language is, how it works, like what are the syntaxes. We didn't even know that there is something called as a compiler and all that. What are the different things which goes into how a programming language works. So initially that I mean, most of us felt very difficult to get accustomed to that, ma'am. It felt a little overwhelming, ma'am, because that was something different compared to the other science and math subjects that we had. This was something very new for us. So when we went to the lab, also we were actually told to implement certain programs and all that. Our teachers to help us, and they used to teach us how to code and all that, ma'am. But on our own, we weren't so confident to write a program by ourselves. The syntax and all the nuances, we found it a little difficult to understand, ma'am, at that time. But then the one solution that came in handy was, after the school hours got over, we used to go to the computer lab. We used to sit with our teacher. We used to try and understand how we can modularize or how we can optimize a code. What is the first thing we should keep in mind before we start writing the code for a program. So we learned that it's better, we have to write something like an algorithm or something first. We have to make a basic idea of what the code is, how it works. So once we develop an analogy like that, later we'll be able to put in the syntax and all the code in place, and that is how a program works. That was something that was very challenging, ma'am. We actually felt maybe we'll never be able to wrap our heads around this. That's what we felt initially when we saw that, because there were so many things we didn't know. What a scanner class is, what is a function, why we have to include that, what is an object. We had no idea about that, ma'am. So it took us a lot of time back then to understand all of that. But some extra time after the school hours we spent in the lab and all that, what helped was the hands-on, ma'am. Basically working with that compiler, trying to learn the language, making mistakes and then learning from it, making many syntactical errors, then learning from it. That was very helpful, ma'am. So finally, by the end of the year, when we finished that subject and we had to take up the main exam, we had some confidence in ourselves, ma'am. We at least knew how things work.
Good, good. At that age, you were able to do mistakes and learn from them. That's the greatest lesson I think
Yes, ma'am.
that challenge has taught you, right?
Yes,
That
ma'am.
was
Yes, ma'am. We
really
had
good.
to do a project also, ma'am. At the end, we had to build something. We were given four options, ma'am. One was to build a interactive game or something, like four users would be playing the game and they used to get their scores. So one option was to develop a Ludo game or something, and another project option was to build a calculator, ma'am. Not a full fledged scientific calculator, but some basic functions. And another one was to I think shopping mall program or something, ma'am, a completely interactive program, so that when the user enters, it'll ask them which in what category they want to shop. It has to give them all the pricing and all that, and finally help them check out, also give them a bill, ask if they had a nice experience, something like that, ma'am. So we were given options to build any one of these projects, and I had done the, I think, the shopping mall thing itself, ma'am. We had to basically build a completely interactive program, A to Z, where the user has to interact with the program. He or she should be able to shop what he or she wants, and then finally make a payment, check out, all that, ma'am.
Oh, great. Which standard was this?
Blue
When
J, ma'am. Blue Java,
no, no,
ma'am.
no. When
10th standard,
10th
ma'am.
standard,
10th, ma'am.
10th standard,
Yes,
you were
ma'am.
able to do all this. Great.
Yes, ma'am. It was evaluated, ma'am. It was compulsory, ma'am.
Okay, good, good. Okay, fine. Let's come out with the next question. What are your favorite
Yes,
subjects,
ma'am.
and why do you think they are favorite?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, in the first year of engineering, since we were getting an introduction to all the different branches of engineering, some of it felt like a continuation of PU, ma'am, because we had physics, we had chemistry. Math was also okay, ma'am. Only thing is that integration and differentiation was in a little more vast year. There was a little more scope for that year. But I actually started liking maths a lot, ma'am, a lot. When I was in school, I was not very fond of maths. I used to find it a little difficult and little intimidating, ma'am, when I was in school. But even in PU, once we started preparing for our competitive exams like CET and all of that, that was when we actually felt that maths was nice, ma'am. We understood that it's nice to go through all this. It's nice to remember all this. I loved trigonometry, ma'am. Somehow, when it started in 10th, that was the only part of maths that I liked the most. Trigonometry. We had very basic in 10th trigonometry, but when we came to PU, it was very interesting, ma'am. Trigonometry was very interesting. So that is actually at the core of most of integration, differentiation, all of that. We deal with trigonometry in more detail. So that was something I liked a lot, ma'am. And even when we came to engineering, it started with the same thing. The first day of our college itself, we started with trigonometry. So that was very, very nice, ma'am. I liked that a lot. So in first and second semester, maths was my favorite. But apart from that, I also liked programming in C and data structures a lot, ma'am, because I felt it was something like a direct continuation of what we had in 10th. There we had Blue Java, here we had C programming language, but the basics of every programming language was the same, like how the syntax and all that. So I loved that subject, ma'am. That was one of my most favorites in first semester. And in second semester, I liked elements of civil engineering a lot, ma'am. That was very nice to learn about. It was something very new, ma'am. We hadn't learned about it anywhere. Like, it was very different. At least physics and chemistry keeps reiterating. Even programming was the same, but this was very interesting, ma'am. Something very new.
Right. Okay. Anything with the core subject for electronics?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Definitely. In third sem, actually, it was a little difficult, ma'am, because initially that was when the branch entry happened, and it was more like very progressive. That's when the core subjects of EC started coming into picture. So it was initially a little overwhelming back then, but most of the subjects were nice, ma'am. I think uh, maths again, yes, ma'am. Maths was good, but apart from that. mm I think EM was actually good, ma'am. Though many people are afraid of that subject, it's actually a nice subject, ma'am, because we actually get to learn so many things there. It's actually a mixture of maths, physics, both, and it's actually nice to learn about that, ma'am. We people have a very vague idea when it comes to electromagnetic waves, how these devices work, and all that. No one tries to understand what is actually happening in the mathematical point of view, how things work. So that was something very interesting, ma'am. It was mostly a very numerical subject, but the numericals we had to remember formulas and do all that, ma'am. But the actual concepts of that subject was very interesting, ma'am. Maybe it's the numericals and proofs and all that which make the subject a little scary
Harder
for
to
people, but the
understand.
concepts are actually nice, ma'am.
But if you
Very
know the
nice.
maths behind that subject, then
Yes,
it
ma'am.
becomes really easy for you, because it's
Yes,
a lot of
ma'am.
integrations and differentiations which you'll have to follow. I mean,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
you
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
have that basic, you will find it hard in getting the concepts of that particular subject, right?
Yes, ma'am. True, ma'am. We learned about the different coordinate systems also now, ma'am. So that was nice, ma'am. We hadn't learned of it before, so it was nice to learn about that, ma'am. The
Okay,
subject was
okay.
like very new.
Okay, the exact opposite question. What were your not so favorite subjects and how did you deal with them?
Um, Ma'am, I think some theoretical subjects were a little. Ma'am, not that it was not a favorite thing to read, but I just felt that we needed more time to understand it, ma'am. Like subjects like management and all that. It's definitely nice to know about it, ma'am. But when it comes to the main exam and all that, VTU, what happens in the final exam is we are expected to write the answer in a certain kind of way so that it matches the standards of what is given in the textbook or the syllabus. It is a very nice subject to understand and learn, ma'am. Actually, management is a very useful and very nice subject to understand and learn. But when it comes to the exam point of view, that we have to try and deep dive into what the textbook says. So we have to remember a lot of things. So that was one point where I felt was challenging, ma'am. Because what we need in the future is not what we read from the textbook word to word. It's what is important is what we understand from what we learn, ma'am. It is that kind of a subject, management. It's not that we have to be precise, we have to use keywords and all that. But from the exam point of view, we were expected to do that, ma'am. So that was a little draining, that subject at that time. But always subjects like signals and systems and DSP, those have been my absolute favorites, ma'am, in fourth sem. In third sem, EEM was nice because that was the only subject I felt, okay, this was something new. But when it came to fourth sem and fifth sem and all that, signals and systems was very nice, ma'am. It was a very nice subject to learn. We enjoyed learning that subject, ma'am, thoroughly. Like we felt, if we were in EC, I felt this would be one of my most favorite subjects. And even the fifth semester when DSP continued, it was like a continuation to signals and systems. That was very, very interesting, ma'am. We had the lab as well, so it was very nice, ma'am, to learn about MATLAB and all that, to be able to correlate what is happening, what we learn in theory in DSP, and to see that come into action in MATLAB when we write the program. That was something very nice, ma'am.
Okay, good. Um, how many projects have you done till now in engineering, and what are they about? What did you learn from
Yes,
them?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So basically, our final year project was about machine learning and AI, ma'am. That was different, machine learning and AI, final year project. But when we did this internship in fourth sem, most of us from our class, we did an internship in fourth sem about Internet of Things. So at that point of time, we were very fascinated with it, ma'am, Internet of Things, because that was not something that was already included in our course, and maybe we would get that as an elective in seventh sem. So in fourth sem, we felt this was very nice. We could do projects on this. It would be helpful. And even the Arduino, that was also very fascinating. So we thought anyway, both of these go hand in hand, Arduino Uno and IoT. So we tried to work on a few handful of projects in fourth sem. And we just we started from the very basic, like a temperature monitoring and all that. That is one of the basic things which people do with an Arduino when it comes to IoT, like recording the temperature of our surroundings, then sending it on a cloud to ThingSpeak, and then trying to monitor how the data is being shown there and all that. We started with a very basic project, and then later I tried to work on a project that was about heart rate monitoring, ma'am. Again, similarly, just like how this was temperature monitoring, that was heart rate monitoring. We used to use a pulse or a heartbeat sensor. That sensor used to actually capture the real-time pulse and heart rate values of a person, and then we tried to move it to the cloud, the ThingSpeak platform itself, so that anyone who was monitoring the heart rate or something, they could be able to see with time whether the values are fluctuating, how it was. And then we also tried to develop a small app using the MIT App Inventor, so that if a user could log into that app and he wanted to see his or her heart rate, he could do that.
Okay,
So we actually aim to do a small wearable device kind of thing, ma'am. That was the two things we worked on in IoT.
that basically was in your IPLs, right? When not your main projects, but your
No, ma'am.
innovative
Yes,
project
ma'am.
labs.
Hobby projects, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. During spare time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, great. And how did it help you learn better? Like, was it of any help in kind of your academics?
No, ma'am, not exactly in academics, but it helped us to learn what IoT is all about, helped us to gain some practical knowledge about it, ma'am. Rather than having to study it from a book or something, rather than having to study about it completely in theory, this was something more nice, ma'am, because we could actually see what was happening over the cloud, how the data was actually getting moved to the cloud, how it was getting stored, that how the data was being read from the sensor, sent to the cloud. So this approach was much more helpful, ma'am, to IoT. It helped us to understand it better, what was actually happening. And learning the Arduino programming was a added advantage, ma'am, because we at least learned some basics, how to interface it and all that, ma'am.
Okay, okay. And did you do any kind of papers presentation during in your engineering? How many did you do, and did it help you anyway?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So that was something that we had heard from our seniors and teachers as well, that it's a very nice experience working on a paper, because you actually try to learn from other people's work, see what they have done. That is when we start getting some knowledge or introduction to research. Because as long as we're in academics, as long as we're studying for the 4 years, sometimes people just get so busy and occupied reading for their exams and all that, that this research kind of point of view never comes in at all. So it's a nice thing, ma'am. By when we start working on a paper, when we start, either it can be a review paper or an own paper, that is when we actually start searching for information. That is when we actually start researching. We get to learn about something in detail. So it's not just liking a subject or something. When we actually try to write a paper about what we like, we learn a lot, ma'am. Not only from our own research, we also get to see how other people have worked on it, what are their observations, their conclusions, their results. So that research kind of mindset mindset actually comes into picture there, ma'am. I feel it's something that everyone should try doing at least once, ma'am, during engineering, because this is the best time. We actually have access to a lot of resources. We can actually uh, do it collaboratively along with our teachers. So I feel this is the best time, ma'am, during engineering. And since we all work together on a paper, no, ma'am, I was actually very glad that we could all work on a paper together, ma'am, because Vedic maths is something that we knew very vaguely about, but we never tried to deep dive into it and see what it's all about. And sometimes people actually try to think, okay, this might not be related to my domain. Why should I even do about that? But when we try writing a paper and when we try researching about it, we actually get to know so many applications that any small topic could have. So I think that's very useful, ma'am. A person actually tries to learn more when he or she writes a paper. Most importantly, they'll actually be able to articulate what they have understood, ma'am, rather than just reading and leaving it aside. When we write a paper, it is mostly penning down what our thoughts are, what we have understood. So that is a very nice thing, ma'am. It will actually be very helpful.
Yeah, I think your learning and writing experience has helped you in writing this particular paper, especially, right? Because you could
Yes, ma'am.
comprehend things, and your hobby
Yes, ma'am.
actually helped you into reading papers. And it is not easy to read, kinds of papers and do a review or an article out of it.
Yes,
Probably
ma'am.
because you have that kind of love towards reading and writing,
Yes, ma'am.
maybe has helped you in doing this kinds of paper.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
Reading others about others' work was really inspiring, ma'am, because some people, they invest so much of time and efforts that they write such intensive papers that it's actually so nice to go through it, ma'am. We learn a lot when we see what others have worked on. It actually gives us so many insights on what we could do, or it actually gives us if there are any points where we can bring in or we can improve something. Sometimes some researchers also mention like what could be the future scope and all that. So that is actually like an eye opener for us, ma'am. When we learn about that concept, we also actually get to know where there is a scope for improvement and all that. Maybe we can build upon that, ma'am.
Okay, good, good. Have you felt low on any day? And if yes, what is your best way to come out of it?
It used to happen, ma'am. Sometimes I used to have small, very basic insecurities, and sometimes it used to get overwhelming. I used to start feeling, no, this isn't going right, or maybe this is not going the way I expected it to be. This is not the way I anticipated. So at times like that, I felt the best way was to take some time for ourselves, ma'am. Just like that, instead of thinking about the same thing and brooding over it again and again, if we try to engage ourselves in something that we like doing, any hobby that we have or something, just spending some time by ourselves, I feel that's the best solution then,
What
ma'am.
did you do? Like, as in, when, what were you doing
Yes.
when that happened?
Yes, ma'am. I used to try to go for walks and all that, ma'am. I felt that was very rejuvenating. I used to go to a nearby park, take some time off for myself, try to be in the midst of nature, try to not overthink and try to not think about the same thing again. Just try to be present in that moment, ma'am.
Okay,
That used to be helpful, ma'am. It used to help to clear the mind, clear the thoughts.
right, exactly. Mindfulness, basically.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. What role did your parents play in your achievement?
Yes, ma'am. So from the very beginning, I think I've always looked up to my mom, ma'am, because she was also she was also working in a company, Kirloskar, before getting married. She was also quite successful in what she was doing. She was also very career oriented and all that. So ever since, but since I was born, mom gave it up completely just to be able to look after me, to devote her time to me, so that she could be with me even if I took a very small step in education or anything like that. She always wanted to be there beside me, ensure that she was there for me, available for me, never so that I mean, she always ensured that I never felt her absence or anything like that. For every small thing, she was there by my side. Even when I was in primary school and all that, she was always there with me. If I didn't understand anything that was going on in school, she used to take time and efforts to try and go through what was given in the textbook. Then she used to try teaching that to me. So every time I'm at every step or every stage, I think she's been my biggest pillar of strength. Yes, ma'am. Even dad, for that matter, all the time. Though we never spent much time at home because he used to come back from office late and all that. But whenever possible, I've tried to learn a lot of things, ma'am. Like it's not verbal or anything. We don't have a lot of verbal or teaching interaction or anything like that. But it's just we see and from we pick
Learn.
up from them. Yes, ma'am. We imbibe from them.
Exactly. The mentality of people is they don't do what is being told. They just follow what is being seen
Yes, ma'am.
in their
Yes, ma'am.
environment. And I think
Yes,
that
ma'am.
is what you're trying to tell, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They've been my role models, kind of, ma'am. I've always looked up to them.
Okay. Okay. What role did your teachers play in this achievement of yours?
Yes, ma'am. So that has been a, I mean, I don't think I can say it enough, ma'am. Lot. It has been a very, very huge positive influence, ma'am. Like each person, each of our teachers have been uh, so positively influencing that we learn something new from each of them, ma'am. Like one of our teachers used to be so patient in explaining that if we didn't understand anything, if we would go back to them, they would always be available for us. So there have been a lot of values that I've learned from each of them, ma'am. Patience from one of them, and being kind from one of them, and then from one of our teachers also being able to articulate their thoughts so well, so that when they teach something to us, it's not that they directly like say verbatim what is given in the textbook. They used to try and make it easy for us. They used to put in those extra efforts so that everyone used to be able to understand that. They used to come up with new examples so that we understand everything. So each of our teachers have been actually so many things to learn from them, ma'am. I can't too many values, ma'am. Right from school days, each of them has been motivating in their own way, ma'am. And even the same thing here, ma'am, when we came to engineering as well. Not only teaching us, but our teachers, apart from not only just giving a lecture or something like that, they used to ensure that each of the student was actually able to understand what was being said. They used to give so much personal attention to each of us. That was, I think, very rare, and that was actually something that was very helpful, ma'am. So they were always available for us. Any kind of doubts we had, we could go back to them, we could interact with them, not only related to that particular module or syllabus. If we had any other doubts out of the context also, they were always there for us. They used to always encourage us, always support us to do new things, to explore new avenues. So I think that was there were many takeaways, ma'am, from
Good, good. Happy to know that. Okay, so it's all questions from me right now. So I have taken some questions from the students as well,
yes, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
and they had a lot of questions to ask you as well. So
Yes,
let's
ma'am.
go through their questions as well.
Sure,
One
ma'am.
of the
Sure,
a
ma'am.
student called Chinmay, his question is,
Okay, ma'am.
what is your long-term goal for which you could achieve so much? What's your long-term goal is his question.
Long-term goal. Ma'am, so as of now, I'm working at a private company that is specialized in computer networking. So this subject was, I actually got introduced to this computer networking subject in sixth semester because we had a subject named computer communication networks. So then when I actually came across the subject, I felt this was very interesting. I felt this was something which is very closely related to everything that is happening around us in the digital world. When we talk about the internet, we just look at it as a vague picture or something, but to actually know about the nuances, what is actually happening when we say something is going through the internet, a packet is going through the internet, this subject was something that I found very fascinating, ma'am. It really piqued my interest. So once I got placed in this company via the college placements, I was very fascinated. And even right now, I'm 3 months down the line in the job, I'm feeling it's very nice to learn about it, because the subject what we learned in sixth semester was like a foundation to what happens in computer networking. But here we're actually getting to see like what is actually happening. It's more like a hands-on, a live experience of everything that we learned. So right now I'm in a very happy place. Now as a long-term goal now for myself, I've just thought that I'll try to equip myself with as much knowledge related to computer networking as much as possible. So I aim to be well versed in everything that is there in that subject, at least to be able to probably, if someone asks me something about that, I want to be in a position where I can explain something to them in this domain. Something, this domain has a lot of scope, many possibilities, ma'am. So when we talk about computer networking, computer security, cyber security, also those concepts also entail along with this domain. So I just want to focus more on that, ma'am. As of now, my interest is towards that domain. I want, in this job role, I want to try to gain as much knowledge as possible while working with my peers as well.
Great, great. Okay, Pranav Yadake has a question. How do you uh, do the time management and time allocations for various subjects?
Yes, ma'am. So as I mentioned earlier, on weekdays, I used to not divide my time or anything like that, saying I'll devote this much time to this subject, this much time to this. No, ma'am. I used to just go home. I used to relax for a while, and then I used to revisit whatever was done. So some days in one subject, some at least maybe 2 or 3 topics used to be covered, whereas in one another subject only 1 or 2 topics used to be covered. So accordingly, I used to just see and allot time, ma'am. I used to just until and unless I understood it completely, I would go back to it and do it, ma'am. So nothing in particular I used to devote like that. But when it came to the exams, I used to try and prepare a timetable for myself, ma'am, like saying as in on which day what subject I would be revising, like for how many hours I would try and revise that. Just a tentative schedule or something like that, ma'am. That would
When
help.
you have your study leaves, right? That is the time when
Yes, ma'am.
you used to have a timetable and you used to follow that.
Yes, ma'am. I used to try and make a timetable as soon as we got the draft timetable of our main exams. We used to get the draft main exam timetable a month or a month and a half before the actual exams could start. So then I used to just try to make a tentative timetable of on which days I would concentrate on which subject, something like that, ma'am. That would help, ma'am. At least sticking to that, we used to, if we follow that, it helps, ma'am.
So you were covering up all the 5 modules just before the start of all the exams for all the subjects?
No, ma'am. By the end of the third internals, we used to be done with that. We used to be thorough with that. So when it came to the main exams, it was actually like a intensive revision that we used to do, ma'am.
So
Rather
basically,
than
there's a
going to
point. So you used to finish off all the 5 modules just before the third internals is over. That
yes,
means
ma'am.
you're done with all the 5. So you
Yes, ma'am.
used to prepare for the internals as though you were preparing for the main exams, right?
Yes, ma'am, definitely, ma'am. Because I never had that mindset that okay, maybe this question is important. If I study for this and skip one question, I look at it for the main exam. I'll do that then. No, ma'am. I felt that that would help me in the long run because if I was already prepared with all the concepts, irrespective of whether that was important or not for the internals, I would be able to recollect it better when I came to it during the final exams. I felt that would help, ma'am. So always I used to try and prepare entirely, thoroughly, irrespective of whether that was important for the internals or not. That would actually help, ma'am. Because during the final exam time, if we go back to that concept, we could actually remember because we would have already done that. That connect used to be there, ma'am.
Right, exactly. And that's the exact point why you are in this position right now. And I recommend all the students to follow this study as well
Yes,
as
ma'am.
preparing for the final exam. That's
Yes, ma'am. Sure. Yes, ma'am.
okay. Next question by Kashyap Rayasa. He tells, I
Okay,
have
ma'am.
always relied on understanding topics first instead of mugging up a few concepts.
Yes, ma'am.
So how do you cope up with doing well in the subjects that do not give you your interest? Since understanding a subject well also means being interested in it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This is very true, ma'am. That was actually what even I used to follow. That was something that I also believed in, ma'am. Rather than mugging up something or rather than reading from something from the textbook and then as it is omitting that in the answer paper, that will fetch marks, ma'am. No doubt that will fetch marks. But ultimately, we won't be able to remember something if we learn it that way, ma'am, is what I felt personally. Just for the sake of it, if we try to remember an answer by using some methods or strategies or something like that, I've seen people doing that, ma'am. They try to remember points or something by using some alphabetical, as in if we have some points, they just try to remember the first letter of that point and then like an acronym or something. All that maybe works if they're only if they're desperate to get marks, ma'am. But ultimately, in the long run, if we want to remember or take away something from the subject, it is important that we be interested in it, ma'am. I agree, ma'am, that sometimes some subjects are actually dry. We don't get that interest or we don't feel that passion to actually go and learn that. But I feel, ma'am, if we devote some more time to it or just try to go through it over and over and again, we will be eventually able to understand it, ma'am. It's just that we have to convince ourselves that we have to do it. It takes a little effort, ma'am, but once
You decide.
if we give it some time, yes, ma'am, it takes some time. But once we are prepared, once we give it some time, sit through it leisurely and then try to go through it, we will start understanding it also, ma'am.
Good, good. Okay. The next question from Kavya Bashiti.
Okay,
How
ma'am.
did you overcome the issue of procrastination regarding academics and time allotment for studies?
Yes, ma'am. So sometimes yes, ma'am, that is, I think, inevitable. Some days, all days are not the same. Some days we feel so energetic. We feel, okay, I should do this, I can do this. We have lots of energy. But sometimes it so happens that we feel lazy. We feel we should put off things. We should take some time for ourselves. So, ma'am, that's not actually something that we should completely avoid doing. It's not a bad habit. It should be made a practice, ma'am. That's all. I mean, procrastination, shouldn't happen always, but it depends, ma'am. Again, maybe whenever we're feeling like that, I think it's best to take some time off, try to listen to music or something. Anyway, anything that whatever makes them happy, they should try doing that for some time, and then maybe they should just clear their mind and then try coming back to it.
Okay, so when they tell time allotment for studies,
Yes, ma'am.
they probably mean they have all the other things in life, as in, you know, being with friends, spending some time with their TVs and other stuffs,
Yes,
um,
ma'am.
and also studying, also writing their records and doing projects. So probably they mean that. So did
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have different times for different things? Like, did you also have
Um,
entertainment in a daily basis?
Uh, yes, ma'am. As in, I never allotted time for myself or anything like that, ma'am. I just go with the flow. That's it, ma'am. When I felt like after I went home, some days I used to feel like maybe I should watch the TV for some time. I used to just do that, ma'am. Because when we don't do something that we like, or forcibly if we try to study or do something like that against our will, we don't. I used to feel that we won't be engrossed in it, ma'am. We have to do something only when we are. In the when only when we're interested in it, not just like we make a timetable, and even though we are sleepy, it's not that just because I've made a timetable I'll go and pick up the book and read that subject. We also have to be interested in it, ma'am. So I used to feel that, okay, if that moment, if I felt like taking a break, I used to do that, and whenever I felt like studying something again, I used to come back to it, ma'am. As in time allotment, as in, yes, ma'am, it is very subjective, because some people might like to go out and play outdoor games or something. Some people might like to play video games. They might want to allot time for other things. But again, ma'am, I think at the end of the day, at least if for a minimum of 2 or 3 hours, if they're able to devote some time to what they have learned on that day, at least that is enough, ma'am. Maybe in the weekends they can take some more time off and then go through what has been done in the entire week. But on a daily basis, at least for a few hours, if they're able to spare time to just see what has been done on that day, I think that will help them a lot, ma'am, in the long run. Not that every day they have to make a timetable, ma'am. That's not. I don't think that's necessary, ma'am.
Okay, great. Sakina asked you, what is your all-time motivation so that so that you could achieve gold medals each time without getting deviated, and also in what way did you set up your daily task, with what strategy and time management? I think we've almost covered in all of the stuffs till now, but is there anything which you want to add on, like in terms of
Yes, ma'am.
what is your all-time motivation?
Uh, Ma'am, motivation, as in, I used to, I don't know, ma'am. I always had this habit that I won't uh, push things for later. If there was anything that had to be done on that day, I used to be at peace only when I had completed that for that day, ma'am. I didn't believe in prolonging something and pushing it forward or postponing it, ma'am. I always felt that whenever something has been assigned to us, or whenever we're supposed to do something, we're expected to do something, when we do it and finish it on the right time, it actually gives us a lot of contentment, ma'am. Rather than pushing it aside, saying, okay, now I have time, I'll relax, I'll do that later. I feel that is a very nice habit that everyone can inculcate, ma'am. Being done with the things then and there, then as and when it comes, that's actually a nice habit, ma'am. That helps as well, ma'am. So even in college, we used to, when we have lab and all that, we have to write records and all that. So rather than pushing everything or responsibility for a later time or something, if we can deal with it at the same time and be done with it, it'll actually be nice, ma'am. That will become a habit, ma'am. Initially, it sounds a little difficult. We feel, okay, why should I do it on the same day? Maybe I have some time with I'll have the lab the next week, so I can complete it at another time. But if we try to make some time, spare some time, and finish it off on the same day, we'll actually realize that we can utilize the remaining days for doing something else also. That is how we can make time for things, ma'am. It's
I got that. Okay. Sumant asked, how were you able to manage your projects, labs, internals, so on, and the way you cope up with your studies as well?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, when it came to project work, lab and all that, again, I think this is something best dealt with in a collaborative manner, ma'am. Even when we do projects, I don't say that doing solo projects is wrong, ma'am. We actually learn a lot even in solo projects. But this far, whatever I have done was on a collaborative basis. So we used to divide our responsibilities. All of us used to try and learn what we have to do. We used to divide what tasks each of us had to do, and then we used to also collaborate in the end and see what best each of us could do, how we could contribute and all that. And after the project work, when it mhm, after the project work, what was the question about, ma'am?
Internals, projects,
Internals and
labs,
all that, ma'am.
uh,
Yes, ma'am.
and studies.
Yes, ma'am. So studies, we used to actually do group studies, ma'am. When there were a few days or something left for the internals, whenever we found time, we used to go to the reference library. We used to try to look up the books. We used to discuss what each one of us have understood. I had a small circle of friends with whom I used to study in a group. So each of us would try to understand the concept in our own way. Sometimes we used to realize that what a friend explained was much more easy to understand. So we used to share and exchange our ideas like that, ma'am. It used to be helpful, ma'am. Each of us used to learn from each other. It's not that one person knows and the other person has to learn. This was actually helpful, ma'am. We used to learn from each other. So that helped us tackle that kind of stress also, ma'am. We wouldn't feel so stressful when the internals came, because we all had the small confidence in ourselves that I know this, she has taught me this, we have learned this from each other. So
And
even when
moreover,
preparing for the internals, yes, ma'am.
teaching others will make you learn better. So that is also
Yes,
one.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We actually learn from them, and we're also able to recollect whatever we have also learned. Yes, ma'am. That's true, ma'am.
You want to add something?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay. So next question is from Angelina Sanjana. She asked, in life, there is always a tug of war between what you truly love and what the world will pay you for. So amongst all this, we often lose our individuality and given the world, because that is said to be the way of life. So how do you as a person retain your individuality and find happiness? I know it's a kind of intense question to you. So you got the gist of it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So please answer.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's actually right that sometimes it is a tug of war. I mean, everything doesn't come as expected, or we can't even say that whatever I want, I'm going to get the exact same thing, or I'm going to be doing the exact same thing that I've envisioned for myself. So, ma'am, for sometimes I think it's best to go with the flow. We have to make use of the opportunities that come to us. Sometimes, yes, ma'am, I agree that it may not be the thing that we absolutely love, or we may not be getting what we actually aimed for. But sometimes, ma'am, I think we have to try and make opportunities from whatever is available to us. Maybe we should start with it. We should try to give it a start, though it may not be the best, or though it may not be the exact thing that we wished for. But every opportunity has something to offer, no, ma'am. So I feel we have to try and take it up, and if we give our best, ultimately I think that will open many doors for us, ma'am. It's not that just because I love something, I'll only be focus towards that, and I'll not try to concentrate on something else. I know, ma'am, it becomes a little difficult, because when we don't like something, it's a little difficult to say that we can give our best to it. But maybe small efforts in that direction, trying to learn, trying to cope up with it, trying to accept it, then in the long run, I think they will actually start loving it, ma'am. But coming to the individuality aspect, I think that's a little subjective, ma'am, maybe, because it depends what they like and what is the opportunity that that has been offered to them. So it depends on that, ma'am. Maybe if they have a choice, they can actually pick something that is closely related to what they have always wanted.
So basically, you mean to tell you keep something as a reward in the far end, and you, even though it is hard for you right now, just look at the
Yes,
main
ma'am. Look at
reward
the
which you'll
bigger
be
picture.
getting, and then
Yes, ma'am.
start doing it, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Because I believe that whatever we take up, if we are good at it, and if we are able to give our undivided attention, and if we are able to put in our best efforts, ultimately it will be rewarding in the end, ma'am. Because that's what counts. That's what matters.
I mean, out of the way, I'm just asking this: how
Yes,
do you give your undivided attention to something? Like, how do you focus on things? Like when you're studying, do you follow any thing, as in you sit in the same place or you sit in the same location, and or you told time is not a matter, you just get in
Yes,
whenever you
ma'am.
are
Yes, ma'am.
comfortable in.
Yes,
But I'm
ma'am.
just asking you, what kind of environment do you create for creating focus when you're studying or doing something?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, basically, I feel that we should be feeling fresh. We shouldn't be like tired or sluggish whenever we try to start something or whenever we try to do something. So basically, first, it's better if we can start sometime, not on weekdays, ma'am, because we'll have college and all that, but other time when we're studying for exams or on weekends, it's better to study in the early mornings, ma'am, because at that time our mind will also be fresh. We'll be able to think. We won't be feeling tired or something at that time. So I feel that is the best time to start reading or something, or to start working on something.
Uh,
The
uh,
mind will be refreshed at that time.
right. So when whenever you're reading, you're all focused and you give undivided attention to what you're studying, correct?
Yes, ma'am. But anytime, at any point of time, if we feel that no, this is, I need a break or something in between, that shouldn't be neglected, ma'am. I feel we need to do that in between. It's not just, it's not like we start studying something until I finish this many pages or until I finish that chapter, I won't get up and go. Not like that, ma'am. Sometimes it's based on their intuition, ma'am. If they feel any time in the between that okay, I need to take a break and then I can come back and do better, they should definitely do that, ma'am. It's they can, it's they should suit themselves, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So the next question from Akash: what do you
Okay.
think about people saying marks is not important, but knowledge is?
Yes, ma'am, that is actually very true, ma'am, because knowledge is something that we gain when we understand what we are reading. So that is important in the long run. But actually, the somewhere at some point of time, this goes hand in hand, ma'am. If you're actually able to understand and gain the knowledge from whatever subject or whatever concept is there, if you're able to understand it, if the conceptual understanding is there, then it shouldn't be difficult to articulate that at the time of the exam and get good marks also, ma'am. Sometimes the main reason sometimes for not getting enough marks or for losing marks, maybe because the concept has not been thoroughly understood, or maybe some concepts might have been skipped or something like that, ma'am. But if both of them can actually go hand in hand, knowledge, conceptual learning, then I think marks will actually come as a byproduct of that, ma'am. I think it definitely it will come, ma'am.
Okay, great. Next question from Shashank Pujari: what was your motivation in the tough times and how you made through it?
Um,
As in, you
yes,
like when you had tough times,
yes, ma'am.
what would you go for, or what would you think, or what would you do so that you get motivated?
Yes, ma'am. So sometimes while studying for a main exam or something, I used to just remember how I had studied for some of the previous exams in the previous semesters, and I used to tell myself, see, if you're able to put in so much of time and put in so much of effort, then when you see the paper, you feel that sense of contentment. You feel that kind of happiness. You feel, okay, I've seen this, I've learned this, I'll be able to attempt this question. So whenever I used to feel low while studying for any subject, or whenever I used to feel that I still have a lot of concepts to cover and the time is less, I used to just try to remind myself that okay, it's going to be okay, we just need to I yes, ma'am, I used to tell myself that
Okay, okay,
it
good.
will be okay eventually.
It will be fine.
Yes, ma'am. It depends, ma'am. Sometimes even just before entering the exam hall, we have that small fear lingering in our mind. Like, what if this question comes? What if this numerical comes? What if I'm stuck midway? What if I'm not able to continue it properly? But once we get the paper and once we start answering, no, ma'am, so many thoughts actually come back and we're able to do that. Sometimes it's surprising, ma'am. We initially feel while entering the hall that maybe I'll not be able to attempt this or something. But once we start writing, it feels totally different, ma'am. We actually understand how much we are able to recollect once we start writing.
Okay, fine. The question from Nisarga: what
Yes.
activities do you do to de-stress and motivate yourself?
Yes, ma'am. So one thing, whenever I want to take a break or something, reading is my go-to hobby. So anything, not any particular genre or anything, whichever book I get, I just try to read for some time. And then I actually like going on walks also, ma'am. I feel that is very relaxing. Listening to music also, ma'am. That's another very, very relaxing hobby.
Okay, fine. um I mean, this question is already asked, but then I still ask you, what do you want
Okay,
to
ma'am.
achieve in life? Like, And how is this achievement of your being first rank in ECE and having 7 gold medals is going to help you in achieving something what you want for your life?
Ma'am, as of now, I'm not exactly sure of how I'll be able to use this in the long run. As of now, I'm just in the moment, I'm just happy. But I have to still figure that out, ma'am, how things will pan out and all that. I have to figure it out, ma'am. It'll take probably some time.
Right, but as in what do you want to achieve in life? You, as you've already told, you want to explore and learn a lot of things from your computer network.
Yes, ma'am. The networking domain. Yes, ma'am. Try
That is
to
what
make
you want
progress
to
in the
achieve in
same
life.
domain, ma'am, consistently.
Or is there anything else other than this achievement for lifetime? Is there anything like that?
As yet, no, ma'am. Yet to explore and come to a decision.
Oh, fine. What do you suggest your juniors? This is a last question, and whatever you wish or you tell, you want to tell, you would want to tell yourself when you were, just entering the engineering or
Yes, ma'am.
studying, or from your experience, what do you want to suggest your juniors?
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, when anyone decides to take up engineering, irrespective of the branch or irrespective of any of that, they should be aware that it'll open a lot of doors for them. A lot of opportunities are going to come their way. So, when they initially start or when they initially embark on this journey, they should be open to learn as much as possible, ma'am. I'm not talking about the bookish knowledge or only restrained to the syllabus or something like that, ma'am. But they should be open to everything, their surroundings. They should actually try to understand whatever is being taught to them. They should try to understand the concept. They should try to figure out for themselves what they can apply this for, what is going on in the actual world, whether it is actually relevant, what they're learning and what is happening in the actual world. If they're able to make that connect and draw parallels between what they're learning, how they can use it for their own benefit later and all that, I feel it's going to be very, very helpful for them, ma'am, in the future as well. Because when they, at the time of placements and all that, even when they want to go for higher studies, whatever they want to do, if they have a particular inclination or a liking for all these subjects and concepts, that's what engineering is all about, ma'am, eventually. Because at the end of the day, no one is going to ask them how much marks they got in a particular subject or something. Everything that matters is what they learned, and if they've been able to actually retain it with them, if they're actually able to apply it as a engineer, whatever role or job role they get into, they should be do justice to what everything that they've learned, ma'am. The 4 years that they spend there, they should try to make the most of it, ma'am. Try to be as open-minded as possible. Try to learn everything from them, because they'll be exposed to so many resources, ma'am. Not only the teachers, they actually learn from friends as well. They actually learn from their classmates as well. So they should always try to look at the best in everything and put their best foot forward, ma'am.
Great. Okay. So with all these, more than 1 hour, 15 minutes ka interview, I'm so happy that you shared a lot of information with us and
My
lot
pleasure,
of,
ma'am.
suggestions and what you think about reading and collaborating and other stuffs. Thank you so much, Swathi. And I would
Thank you
suggest
so
all
much,
the
ma'am.
students to follow to some extent of what you have told, and I'm sure they're going to achieve something or get inspired. Even if one person get inspired out of this interview,
Yes, ma'am.
I think it would be a great effort from both of our sides.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be
Right?
extremely glad, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And I would also request you, if there are any people who would want to reach out to you in any of the social media platforms, like let's say a professional platform like LinkedIn or something, I request you to help them out in any
Sure,
of the
ma'am.
kind of suggestions or help in a small way which you can do from your side.
Sure,
That
ma'am.
will
I'll be
also
glad to,
benefit
ma'am.
students, right? And I'm very
Sure, ma'am.
happy that you have achieved this, and I wish a lot many more success, and never stop dreaming high, and
Thank you
keep
so
yourself
much, ma'am.
always having that fighting spirit, and I'm sure
Sure,
you'll
ma'am.
overcome that all your challenges and the difficult times which you have with your self critic. I'm sure you're going to
Yes, ma'am.
overcome that, and you're an inspiration, and I'm really thankful for that.
Thank you so